Okay, well, again, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I am the program manager of the peer-reviewed medical research program, which is a program that falls under the CDMRP, the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Programs. And I'm excited to be here today and talk about our funding opportunities. So here's an outline of the briefing for today. I'm going to start with an overview of CDMRP, which is our organization. Then I'm going to go through our program cycle and review process. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the program itself, the specifics about peer-reviewed medical research program. Like Karen said, it's just one of 35 now this year being executed by CDMRP. I'm going to talk about our funding opportunities and what you can do to apply. And then I'm going to close off the presentation with some resources, tips, and strategies for success. Next slide, please. So we always like to start these presentations with CDMRP's vision and mission, and we aim to transform healthcare through innovative and impactful research. And I would like to highlight these two words, innovative and impactful. You'll hear me speak to them throughout the presentation, and it's really one of the things that differentiates us from other funding organizations. We're looking for that impactful research that's really going to change the lives of those affected by the diseases and conditions that are assigned to us. We do that by responsibly managing collaborative research that discovers, develops, and delivers healthcare solutions for service members, veterans, and the American public. And I would like to draw your attention to the public, to the audience that we're catering to. So it's really very broad, and it's not just restricted to active duty service members. Next slide, please. This is what we call our STAR graph. It's really the who, the what, the where, and the how. So this organization started in 1992 after breast cancer advocates went to the Hill to bat for funds for an appropriation just for a research, for a breast cancer research program. Once the appropriation was approved, it was decided that this program would be managed by the Army, and that's how CDMRP was stood up. And we have steadily grown since then. So we started with one program, and now we are 35 programs. Again, we fund innovative and impactful biomedical research, and it can be funded anywhere in the world. Not only American institutions are limited to our funding, but also international, academia, industry. It's really everybody can apply. Lots of publics can apply. And we do this, how we do this is through our two-tier review process. And you will hear me speak to this in depth throughout the presentation. I just want to draw your attention that we don't just have a peer review, we don't have a pay line, we will have a second level of review, which is what I will be speaking to in further slides. Next slide, please. So the hallmarks of our organization, Congress adds these funds, these CSIs, Congressional Special Interest Funds, to the DoD budget. This means that we do not request it in the president's budget, right? So it's just added to us for our execution. We fund high impact, innovative research that's going to significantly change and impact the lives of those that are affected by diseases and conditions. We avoid duplication with other funding agencies, and we target unfunded, unmet gaps. And we do that. We have a collaboration with the NIH, with the VA, where we can access their platform. So we are really looking into duplication, not only budgetary duplication, but also scientific duplication. Our funding opportunities are publicly announced and competed. We like to say that this is an equal opportunity organization and program. This means that we do not work with individual performers to tailor their proposals to our programs and to our funding opportunities. We aim to not provide any competitive advantage to any performer. So all the information that you need is going to be available through either these webinars or the funding opportunities. We follow the National Academy of Medicine recommended model for application review, which really marries the benefits of peer review and of a higher level review, which makes sure that we fulfill the program goals. We are proud to say that consumers participate throughout the process, and they are the true north and foundation of our programs. This means that individuals living with the disease and condition have an equal vote during peer review and also during programmatic review. we are able to annually adapt each program's visions and investment strategies, allowing for rapid response to changing needs. This means that the way that our appropriation comes, which is yearly, we can tailor our goals and our strategy so we can meet the needs of all our stakeholders that year. Our funds are obligated up front, so you will not have any concerns about having a pay cut in following years. There is no continuation funding, so unlike the NIH, we do not have a mechanism to continue your funding if you already had an award with us. This is because we are here to meet congressional intent, and congressional intent might vary each year. So just because you finished an award with us doesn't mean that it will necessarily be funded or that we have a mechanism for that. You'll have to come in and compete again with that year's goals and mission. And again, because of our two-tier review process, we don't have a pay line. So not necessarily the proposals that are going to have the highest scientific score are going to be the ones that are going to be recommended for funding. This is because we have that second level of review, which I will talk about in further slides. We are very transparent to our stakeholders. This is something that we're very proud of. And we do that by having a very robust website. You can find a lot of information there. You can find the awards that were previously funded. You can find members of our programmatic panel. So I do encourage you to take a look at our website if you're considering applying to our funding. And last, we have the lowest management costs of all funding organizations, of all government funding organizations, which allows us to maximize the research dollars that we have to invest. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of all 35 programs that we have with FY23 appropriations. I would like to just remind this public here that scleroderma used to be one of its own programs in up until FY21. And then in FY22, we did not have an appropriation, and now it came back as a topic area under the program that I'm speaking to today, which is peer-reviewed medical, which has 50 topics. Okay, so this is just a distinction that I think it's important for us to make. It's not its own program anymore. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about the program cycle and the review process. Next slide. So here's the diagram of our program cycles and all important milestones that we have to fulfill up until a proposal is recommended for funding. I'm going to focus for the purpose of this meeting more on the left side. The right side, we have all the award management steps. So after your proposal is recommended for funding, okay, all the way to closeout. But for the purpose of this brief, we will focus on the left side. So all our programs start with what you see there. It's a vision setting meeting. That's when we gather all the input from our stakeholders, from the programmatic panel, and we try to devise a strategy for the execution of the next year's fund. Okay. After that, we will release our funding opportunities. It's in the vision setting meeting that we decide which funding opportunities are going to be the best vehicle to meet the goals and needs of the program and of our stakeholders. And then we will define how many mechanisms we want, how many funding mechanisms we would like to put out for that year. And then we can release the funding opportunities, keeping in mind that we can only release the funding opportunities after we get congressional appropriation. So if we are in a continuing resolution that year, it's going to take much longer for us to release those funding opportunities. We cannot release while we are in the continuing resolution. Then we will go through pre-application screening and then application receipt. And then we will go through the two levels of review, the peer review and programmatic review, up until when you're gonna, after that, you will receive a notification letter. So on this slide, I would like to draw your attention to two important aspects here. The first one is the brown circle there in the middle. You can see it says programmatic panel. So these are individuals that will have input throughout several of our milestones here. So not only in vision setting, but they will also have input during the pre-application screening, in case we do have one that's for pre-applications, in case you have a mechanism that you have to, is by invitation. Then also through the peer review process, no, but then all the way to programmatic review. So these are individuals that have a lot of input on the program, and they're listed on our website. So I encourage you to go to our website and take a look at them. The next thing that I would like to draw your attention is to the blue arrow at the bottom. You can see there annual appropriation review and award cycle. By the time you receive the appropriation, all the way until we are going to have our funding recommendations, it can take up to, I would say, 20 months. Okay, so keep that in mind while you're drafting your proposal for us. Next slide, please. So the goal of the two-tier review process, I think it's, I've been trying to make it evident by now, is really what we're trying to do is to balance the most meritorious science across all the disciplines with the highest promise that will fulfill the programmatic goals that we propose in our funding opportunities. Next slide, please. And one more click, please. There we go. Perfect. So the first level of review is the peer review. I think this audience is very familiar with peer review. Scientists are familiar with how it works. It is assessing the proposal based on its technical merit, comparing it to an ideal application, right? It's criteria-based evaluation, and it is just an individual proposal. There's no comparison here. Our peer reviewers are comprised of scientific and consumer reviewers. Unlike the NIH, we do not have a Center for Scientific Review, right? Because our topic areas varies, because our program vary, we do not have any standing panels. So we stand up the panels once we start receiving the proposals. So we can make sure that we include the appropriate expertise to review. The identities of the reviewers if you're submitting this year, it's going to be unknown. And really, we discourage any contact between reviewers, the program staff, and the applicants. You can find, though, however, on our website, a list of peer review participants from previous years, right? So with that, you can go in there, you can take a look. They're not going to be the same ones because we don't have standing panels. They're not going to be exactly the same ones that are going to participate this year, but you can get an idea of the type of expertise that's recruited in our panel. And since you are going to be evaluated in a set of criteria that we will discuss further on, the outcome is going to be a numeric score and a summary statement that's going to describe the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal. Next slide, please. So after peer review, we go on to the to programmatic review. The ones that had the highest score in peer review are going to be the proposals that are going to be directed to programmatic review. And here now we are looking at a comparison among these proposals, among the proposals that have the highest scientific merit. So there's a set of criteria. They're all listed in our funding opportunities that the reviewers from the programmatic panel are going to be looking at, which involve adherence to award mechanism, intent, relative innovation, relevance to program goals, consideration of portfolio composition. So these are all listed in our funding opportunities, but these are the types of aspects that they're looking into. The programmatic panel, as I mentioned, they are listed on our website. Again, here we do have consumer reviewers, so keep that in mind. Make sure that the impact of your proposal to the affected community is clearly articulated, right? They do have an equal vote, both on the peer review side and on the programmatic review side. And then the outcome, these are the folks that are going to be putting together the recommended for funding list, so that are ultimately going to be recommending your proposals for funding. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, consumers, they are our true north. They are part of CDMRP on every aspect, and they can include patients, survivors, family members, and/or caregivers in some instances. And they, like I said, they are included in every aspect of our review cycle. So there are true partners. I encourage you, there are going to be some attachments. When you start drafting your proposals, there are going to be some attachments that are going to be mainly directed towards these consumers. It would be the lay abstract, for instance. So make sure that you clearly articulate, free of jargon, the impact that your proposal is going to have on the community that they serve. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about PRMRP, which is one of the programs that I showed you the snapshot previously, and where scleroderma is now a topic area, and we'll go through our funding opportunities that are available at the moment. Next slide, please. So the program initiated in 1999, and different than other programs that you saw on that table, we do not have a very prescriptive congressional language. We are here to follow congressional intent, but our congressional language is very broad, and it says to support research of clear scientific merit and direct relevance to military health in specified topic areas. And then each year we receive a list of topic areas that we can fund with that year's appropriation. Next slide, please. So here is the list for FY23 topic areas. You can see there that in blue are topic areas that have never been assigned to the program. In green are topic areas that fell off the program and then came back. You can see scleroderma there in green because it was previously assigned to PRMRP, then it became its own program, and now it's coming back as a topic area, okay? By law, the applicants have to address these topic areas to be eligible for funding. And we do not have a dedicated line of funding to each of these topic areas. It's really based on scientific merit. Next slide, please. So for our strategic purposes and for as part of our strategy of execution, right, we allocate these topic areas into larger buckets, which we call our PRMRP portfolio, and allows us to have a portfolio-driven approach, both to the review and also it makes the comparison between each of these topic areas a little bit more fair. You will see there scleroderma is going to be allocated in the first portfolio there in purple. There you see, which is the autoimmune disorders and immunology. Each of these portfolios have their own set of goals that we are trying to achieve, long-term goals and short-term goals, okay? So it's not, like I said, the goals that we're looking at, they fall under the spectrum of the continuum of care. I'm going to show an example to you of that later, but not necessarily the goals that we have for treatment for autoimmune disorders are going to be the same ones that we have for infectious disease. So you are going to have to choose one strategic goal, one topic area when you apply for our funding opportunities. Make sure that you're looking at the right portfolio and the right topic area allocation here. Next slide, please. So to fund all of these 50 topic areas, like I said, each year we devise a plan and a strategy, and it comes to the public as our funding opportunities. This year we have 6 funding opportunities out available to the public now. Our funding opportunities have always, this is from the history of the program, we have funded bench to bedside, very early discovery type of research, all the way to our clinical trials. And in the next 2 slides, I'm going to talk to these funding opportunities in a little bit more detail. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start off with our first 3 funding opportunities. You see they're listed on the far left, Discovery Award. These are our lowest direct cost that we have, our lowest funding opportunity. It's $200K, but it's really meant to foster that innovative idea, that paradigm shift, if you will, okay? And we're looking here for very innovative concepts. Preliminary data is not necessary for this. It's basically an award mechanism that we view as if we put a little bit of seed funding, it can bolster the research in a specific field. I would like to say that many times we often receive a portion, a smaller version of an R1 through this award mechanism. This is not the intent of the award mechanism. We're looking for that game-changing idea, okay? Next, we have our investigator initiated. We have 2 options of those. You can come in with a partnering PI and the direct cost limit is going to be 2 million, or you can come in alone. If you're coming in with a partner PI, a partnership statement is going to be requested, so you can elaborate on why this partnership is beneficial to the research that's going to be conducted. Through this award mechanism, this is the one that's most similar to the NIH, R01. We can support basic through translational research. And again, we're looking here at something that will really improve and impact the field of research or patient care. The next award mechanism is the TTDA, or Technology Therapeutic Award. This is a product-driven award mechanism. We have 2 funding levels depending on where you are on the development of that product. It is meant to support the translation of preclinical findings into impactful products for clinical application. So we can fund things here like toxicology studies, GMP production. And the idea is if you're applying for a funding level 2, you would take this all the way by the end of the period of performance, you would have an IND, for instance, okay? You can see at the bottom of the slide there, letter of intent is required for these mechanisms. And I would like to just spend a moment here explaining to you the difference between the letter of intent and a pre-proposal, which you're going to see in the next slide. So because we don't have any standing panels, we administratively, we need some sort of a document of what are going to be the proposals that we are going to receive, right? So we can start standing up those panels. So this is exactly what this is. This is a letter of intent that you will need to submit to us about, I would say it depends. We will take a look at the deadline, about 4 weeks before you have to submit your full proposal. And this allows us to start standing up the panels and recruiting the appropriate expertise. The letter of intent is, like I said, it's simply a letter of intent. It's a 1 paragraph. It's very simple. All you have to do is go through EBRAP and submit it. And then you will submit your full proposal. Again, this is not optional though. If you do not submit a letter of intent, you are not eligible to submit a full proposal. We cannot bypass that, okay? Next slide, please. So these are our last 3, our larger award mechanisms. I'm going to start with the Focus Program Award. This is a team science. You can have a group of professionals, a group of researchers that come together to address an overarching challenge. The direct cost limit for this is 7.2 million. And we're looking here to really support like multidisciplinary research. And we aim to have at least 4 groups together. The next award mechanism are our clinical trials. Our clinical trials are extremely popular. We have 2 options. You have a clinical trial with planning phase, where we will give you 500K, $500,000 for you to finalize all your regulatory documentation or IRB approvals, and then we will execute the trial as an option. Again, when you come in under this option, you will need to submit both budgets, both for the planning phase and then for the option of the clinical trial. Or we will request, we also do have an option of a clinical trial, full clinical trial, where you will come in, keeping in mind that an IND at hand is already, it's mandatory for this. So you would have for the purpose of what you're going to execute on the trial, right? Our clinical trials do not have a direct cost limit, and we do that to not hinder any type of research that can be really a breakthrough research. So you can come in with the appropriate budget that you think is necessary for you to execute that trial. Now, you will see the box there at the bottom. A pre-proposal submission is required, which will result in an invitation or not invite. I want to emphasize that we do this because these 2 award mechanisms, they are very elaborate. You're going to see once you start working on them, there are several attachments to them. This is a very elaborate proposal submission. So we, in order to not give you more work than really is necessary, we request a 4-page pre-proposal that's going to be evaluated by our programmatic panel, and they will either invite or not invite. That is a way for you not to put together a full proposal when the programmatic panel really had no intentions of funding it, okay? Again, this pre-proposal, you must submit a pre-proposal. You can't just come in and submit a trial, and you will receive an invitation letter at the end of it if after it's been reviewed, in case we are interested in your submission. And then lastly, we have the lifestyle and behavioral health interventions. This is a new award mechanism for this year. It's the first time that we're doing that. And what we're trying to do is put everything that's all the clinical research and clinical trial that's non-FDA regulated. So disciplines like behavioral health, psychology, psychometrics, all under this umbrella of the behavioral health interventions. For this one, you will not receive an invitation, just a letter of intent is required. Next slide, please. So for all these 6 funding opportunities that I mentioned, you will have to, all of them, you will need to submit a military health statement. This military health statement is going to be evaluated by the programmatic panel. They are going to be the ones evaluating a military relevance of your proposal. Now, I do understand that there are some topic areas that are more military aligned than others, but all of them are going to be military relevant. And for that, we include here examples of how you can articulate that in your military health statement. So dual use capacity that will benefit the civilian population, aspects of the targeted disease and condition with direct relevance to military health, the contribution to family readiness. So assuming that a service member has a family member that has a disease or condition. So how does that affect mission readiness, right? I do encourage you to speak to your advocacy groups. They are the ones that have the language. They were able to put the topic area. We have no say on which topic areas are assigned to us, but they were the ones that advocated and argued why that topic area was military relevant. So they do have a lot of good statistics. So I encourage you to reach out to the advocacy group to help you in drafting these statements. The other thing that you're going to need to do, as I mentioned, you're going to need to choose one topic area and one strategic goal. So assuming it's going to be scleroderma and autoimmune disorders, you will have to choose all of that as a hierarchy when you're submitting to us. Okay, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Next slide, please. So here we have the strategic goals, our program strategic goals for the autoimmune disorders portfolio. You will see the topic areas that are allocated, that are eligible to go with this set of goals here on your right. See scleroderma there at the bottom, and you will see the goals. You'll see that the goals, they are very broad, but they're broad for a reason. It's meant to be some sort of mix and match. So we reach to all our stakeholders and we see what is it that you need on foundational studies, diagnosis, and we try to write it in a broad language that allows both for the research that we need to come in and also for us to keep our monitoring of what it is that we are funding. So the applications will have to address one strategic goal in one topic area. Next slide, please. So this is the continuation of the spectrum of the continuum of care. So here we have treatment and epidemiology. So you will see that there are several goals that are broad that try to narrow on what it is that we want, but also keep it broad for you to come in with your with the proposed research. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned before, we talked a little bit about the peer review criteria. I wanted to show you in more detail for these funding opportunities, right? Can we have one more click, please? I apologize for that. Okay. So you will see here in our funding opportunities, there's going to be a section there that's going to talk about peer review and how it's going to be scored. So this is an example that you see there of a peer review criteria for one of our award mechanisms. I would say it's the investigator initiated award. Okay, so you will see there that the score, these are listed in decreasing order of importance, research strategy and feasibility, then impact, and for each one of these, you're going to have a list of bullet points that you see there after the red arrow that are going to clearly articulate how your proposal is going to be evaluated and will be scored for. So I do encourage you to take a look very carefully into this, keeping in mind that the criteria are not going to be the same for a discovery award that it's going to be for the for a technology therapeutic. So keep in mind that if you are applying for different award mechanisms, make sure that you take a look at how we are going to be evaluated. Sometimes, for instance, for the discovery award, the first scored criteria is going to be the most important is going to be innovation, not research strategy and feasibility, right? We often do recommend to researchers that you start off, if you don't know where to start off your proposal, start off here. Take a look at all the criteria, make sure that you are addressing each and every one, and we're going to have several pages of the funding opportunity that are going to go through each and every one of these, right? So make sure that you are addressing all of that, because that's the list that the peer reviewers are going to have when they are scoring your proposal. Another suggestion that we give to researchers is when you are drafting this, after it's done, make sure that you give the list of criteria that you're going to be evaluated against to a colleague that you trust, so they can actually tell you it's a feedback, right? If you are addressing all of these bullet points. Next slide, please. One more click, please. So here we do have a list of the programmatic reviewers that are listed on our website. After peer review, it's going to go to programmatic review, and here it is what the programmatic panel is looking into. So they're looking comparatively to all proposals that had high scientific merit, to their adherence to the intent of the award mechanism, how it's addressing the topic areas, the strategic goals, the relevance to military health, and the program portfolio composition. Now, I will say the programmatic panel is not there to re-evaluate the science, so they rely heavily on the summary statement. There are some attachments you will see in our funding opportunities that are not going to go to the programmatic panel, and there are some attachments that they are going to go. For instance, the military health statement that goes to the programmatic panel. So make sure that you are articulating to that public on the attachments that they are going to see, right? Keeping in mind that they're not going to have the whole proposal, the entirety of the narrative. No, they're not supposed to be re-reviewing the science. They are supposed to be simply relying on the summary statements and then looking at the other attachments that are pertinent and relevant to their review process. Again, our programmatic panel, each program under CDMRP has their own programmatic panel, right? So PRMRP has 20 individuals that are part of the panel that are making the funding recommendations. So I encourage you to click on our website and take a look at that. Next slide, please. Here is just a summary of the table with our deadlines. You can see that the only 2 award mechanisms that are going to require a pre-proposal that will result in an invitation to submit are our largest ones, Focus Program Award and Clinical Trial. The other ones are, we request a letter of intent. This one, the first one that's coming is the Discovery Award. It's fast approaching. The date for the letter of intent is going to be March 29th. And again, the letter of intent is not optional. It is a requirement. And if you do not submit the letter of intent, we cannot evaluate your full proposal. Next slide, please. So now I'm just going to close off this presentation with some additional tips, resources, and strategies for success. Next slide. So if I can leave you with just one message here today, just one, is read the announcement carefully. Like I said, we do not work with individual performers to tailor their proposal. And we can do that, first of all, to not give any competitive advantage, but because our program announcements are very comprehensive. All the information that you need is there. I understand sometimes we start reading the program announcement, we're going to go to page 5, okay, I got this, and start. But no, they are long and lengthy for a reason. They go through several steps of review, legal review, acquisition review. So all the information that you need to successfully submit a proposal to the DoD is listed there. Pay careful attention to the program goals. Pay careful attention to the portfolio goals in this case, making sure that you're addressing the correct requirements that we have there. Next slide, please. Again, like I said, we are looking to fund high impact, high innovative research. So impact and innovation should be very clearly articulated throughout your proposal. So propose solutions that are important to solving problems or gaps that are important in the field. Clearly articulate translatability. This is very important for our consumers, right? So how will this work make a difference in their lives? Provide a clear rationale proposing to test a new, potentially high-risk idea. Use novel approaches. Make sure you emphasize that these are novel approaches. Bring the appropriate review that you needed to support that this is an innovative approach. Feasibility is something that I think researchers really, they do not have a hard time articulating feasibility. This is something that we do very well. So justify technically sound plan, make sure that it's appropriately powered, include evidence of appropriate expertise. So this is not really what's new here. It's common through other funding organizations. So we're more looking into impact and innovation and again, relevance. Next slide, please. Okay, so planning and timelines. The deadlines for the DoD are what you see on the cover of the funding opportunity and what we have there. Absent a disaster of nature, a hurricane, an earthquake, or something that's really extraordinary in the sense of the word, we do not provide a grace period. So I know that some other funding organizations, you see the deadline and, we still have 2 weeks after the deadline. This is not going to happen to our awards. It is not often, it's very common. Each cycle, we lose several good proposals because they come in at 12:01. Or 1 minute past that deadline, right? So I do encourage you to make sure you give yourself the appropriate buffer of time that you need. For in academia, it's mainly the business office that's going to be doing the submissions. There are always glitches in submissions. This is not the DoD. There in any process there are. So make sure that you leave enough time, at least a couple of days, for the business office to go through that, be able to contact our help desk if there are any issues, and fully resolve them before the deadline approaches. And finally, grantsmanship. That always goes a long way, making sure that you're articulating clearly for the consumers, for the programmatic panel, the military relevance. So for the attachments that are going to go to the consumers, make sure it's unburdened by jargon. Even sometimes for the programmatic panel, it's a list of 20 individuals that are making funding recommendations for all of those topic areas. So the impact, the innovation has to come clearly across in a non-complicated fashion. Next slide, please. So our website, like I mentioned, has tons of good information. I encourage you to go there. We do have, you can search previously funded awards. You will see our annual reports to Congress. You can see my program, we put a lot of research highlights, so you can see how the research has progressed, a lot of consumer highlights. So consumers that participated in the peer review process are featured on our website, and they tell them your story. So I think it's very important source of information for you to familiarize yourself with the individuals that are going to be making the funding recommendations. Next slide, please. You can also subscribe to receive to our listserv and receive information on our programs. That is available on our website. You will see there the little mail icon. You can click there, and then you can decide if you want to receive information for. You can choose for just one program or several programs. But this is also something that I highly encourage the researchers to do, because for future cycles you will be notified when funding opportunities are released. Next slide, please. And lastly, we have here our webinar series. These are webinars. They're not going to be specific for PRMRP's funding opportunity, but they will nonetheless be very informative. So you have there, for instance, a team science funding opportunities that can speak to what it is that we're looking for. So for instance, if you're thinking of applying for a focused program award, which is our team science, I encourage you to take a look at this, at these webinars that are available on our website. So another one that's a good one is high risk, high gain funding opportunities. There's really a wealth of information on our website that I encourage you to familiarize yourself with. Next slide, please. And I will pause here. I hope that this was informative, and I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dupecher. That was super informative. I would like to see if there's any questions that folks might have. Gail?
I had it, but I forgot it. So while other people are thinking, I'll see if it comes back.
Okay.
Is it about the letter of intent? That's the one that I fear the most.
No, it was earlier on. It was more of a how do you come up with these things, but it's gone now. It was early on. I should have written it down. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Dr. Dupecher, if people have questions about which area their grant is most applicable to, because you were showing the different areas, and I remember that we were in purple, but if they have questions about kind of, we have to kind of pick a path, right, of which goal area or which area.
Absolutely
The
right. Yes,
project
you're
is
going to have to pick a path. Yes.
right, most aligned with, and obviously a lot of the science can be applicable or have application across a lot of different areas.
So you will need to pick a topic area for first and foremost, right? So if the topic area is scleroderma, you don't have any other path to go. Scleroderma is not in any other portfolio. So you will be forced to fall under that line there. If you do have another type of research, another line of research that you think is, then absolutely you might have other options there. But for scleroderma, that's all you have. For instance, if this might clarify, we have a topic area that's called trauma. That's very broad. That's how it came to us by Congress, right? So what do you do with trauma? Trauma can be applicable to several of us. So I put it in different portfolios. So you can have the hemorrhage control portfolio, the respiratory health, the neuroscience. So that's a little bit more tricky, but for these autoimmune disorders, there's just one allocation.
Right. I guess I'm thinking of like a project that's looking at susceptibility to cancer in scleroderma patients or something like that. And if we have questions, does it?
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
you can feel free to reach out. Keeping in mind that specific points about your proposal, I'm not going to be able to help you tailor that, but you can feel free to reach out. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
I will say, just because your question highlighted something, we do have several other cancer programs, right? CDMRP has several other cancer programs. With that, we are not allowed to fund cancer. So you would have that's something that you have to keep in mind. And that's where grantsmanship goes a long way, to focus more on, okay. All right. Yeah, you got
it. Great. Thank you. No, that's a great point.
Are there any other questions? Was this helpful?
Very.
Okay.
I think. I'm looking forward to the slides. I do pre-award, so I'll share it with other people.
Okay.
Applicants that, because when you receive a summary statement, as someone recently did, perhaps the applicant missed the programmatic review aspects of it, and, tailoring the writing to that group as well. So I think that will really help, especially with junior people.
Yeah. That's the hope. That's the plan.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'm looking forward to having those slides.
And I'll send those out shortly. And I just want to extend a huge thank you to Dr. Dupecher for taking the time to share all this information with us. And we appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions.
Okay, good.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.